So this month we talked about diversity and inclusion, covered a lot of ground and topics around that, unconscious bias, etc. And this week I want to talk about things that I think companies get wrong when it comes to D&I work, and just addressing some of those. And the first one I think is tokenism. The idea for companies to be like, we hired an Asian person, we're diverse, like we solved diversity, we're diverse now, and just check the box and move on. And I think this work isn't about that. It's not about just doing one simple thing and check the box and be like, okay, cool, we're good. The second thing is using D&I as a marketing campaign. And I think an example of that is, during Pride Week, 1 week of the year, we put out an ad and be like, hey, we're gay too, Listerine. Which if that is the only thing that you do, it is a superficial sort of show of support, right? It's kind of empty calories when it comes to if you don't do anything else that is additional, that's meaningful, you're actually like being a support. It is just, it's problematic. You're exploiting a marginalized group of people and their struggle just to be like for profit and like in a way that is not meaningful. I think that's like, and it is important, I think, for companies and brands to use their platform to have these conversations and build awareness. I think that is positive. But if that is literally solely the only thing you do around this work, I think that's, bullshit. Third, I think a lot of companies overcommit to training and doing some like isolated event. Like let's bring somebody in, let's like do this training around diversity and inclusion, but don't actually integrate it. Don't actually do any meaningful work past that to follow through and actually make changes and look at systems and processes and procedures and make actual like real tactical changes inside the organization to like promote this work and value it. So it's becomes something that we, again, do to check the box, but without it being a sort of like, we actually prioritize this. This is one of our values around like seeking more inclusivity, more diversity, and like doing that in a like more integrated way. Number 4 is not asking questions. I think there's a feeling for organizations, leaders, companies to have all the answers and have to show up and like do all the work and show up with all the answers and have it right. And I think a lot of conversations and solutions around diversity and inclusion can be addressed by just asking questions. Go to your people, go inside your organization and be like, hey, what does diversity and inclusion mean to you? How can we do better? What are our blind spots? I don't think that we should leave it up to ourselves to be responsible for identifying all of our blind spots. It's like, you don't know your blind spots. That's what they are. And I think bringing other people into that conversation to say like, hey, where can we do better? Who are we excluding here? And just like asking the questions and going to people and being willing to hear what they have to say and listen. And that means challenging things that our perceptions and experiences, and like actually listening to what we're being told. Ultimately, all of this work around diversity and inclusion is not about covering your ass. It is about recognizing the advantage, the value, the necessity of doing this work, and how important and valuable it is for companies, organizations, teams, like every single person. And I think that the world needs more people who come from a place of power and privilege to be champions of this work and to add their voices to doing these kinds of things and making changes. All of us are up against a whole lifetime of wiring, right? From our parents, from media, from our friends, from stories, from TV. Like we're up against like just a whole lifetime of perception and experiences that are very hard to sort of challenge. But the reality, as hard as it is to swallow, is that some people are born on third base and other people are not even allowed in the stadium. And like, that is true. And it really is up to the people who have that position of privilege and power to say, wait, this isn't equitable. This is not right. Everybody deserves to have a seat at the table, to be welcome and like part of this thing. It is incredibly important for teams to do this work, to actually look at policies, procedures, practices, and ask, who are we excluding? Like, how can we do better? For example, maternity leave. Do you also have paternity leave? What about families who want to adopt a child? Is there a policy in place for that? Truth is that there's a lot of women and people of color and older people, younger people, people with disabilities, introverts. Like, there are lots of people that could be contributing to your company and your team in an extremely meaningful, valuable way. And if you don't do this work, you're going to miss out on them. If diversity and inclusion is not a priority for your company and for you individually, and it's just something that you kind of tolerate, right? If people approach this conversation and these things around privilege and be like, oh, the race card, and blow it off, it's like, you lose. you lose out on people. And the business case, like we've talked about all month for this, is so strong of why it's important for companies to focus on this stuff around retention, performance, engagement, people feeling included and welcome. Like people perform so much better. Like you innovate better when you have different perspectives. Like there's an unlimited amount of business case for this. Plus, it's just the right thing to do. And I think that we talk about barriers in the work that we've done so far around different barriers that exist for certain people. And I think for us as human beings, like the biggest barrier that we have personally is to overcome and challenge our own bullshit about what we believe about other people and individuals and groups of people and who they are and bring to the table, and continue to to stop upholding infrastructure and systems that give us an advantage while holding other people back.